Hey, Julian here. If you're a regular listener, you might remember a story that we did last year about scammer farms. Most scams these days, they're being run by people living in slavery from these so-called scammer farms, and it's a pretty scary, bleak situation. So we've launched a new multi-part documentary series called Scammerland. You're going to hear some stories of people who have been abducted into this system and then escaped. And then we're going to really unpack how this business model got started, who runs it, and who is trying to stop it. It's on Apple Podcasts, but it's also on YouTube and Spotify if you'd like to watch the video version. That's Scammerland, out now.
Super real.
And then, of course, when she learned that Patrick was cast, she was not happy. He was not happy. And I think they just didn't like each other. And when it came down to some of the scenes, kissing at the end, she ran off the set and she said, "Oh, I hate the way he kisses. This is
Did she give you
Patrick Swayze?" I feel like, the English said, close your eyes and think of Queen Elizabeth, go back. And you're doing take two, you must put up with this. I kept saying, the clock is running and you can do it. You're an actress.
Hey, I'm Julian Morgans, and you're listening to What It Was Like, the show that asks people who have lived through big, dramatic events what it was like. Every now and then, I like to do an episode about one of my favorite movies. You can probably tell what my favorite movies are just by going through all the titles of this show. So we've done Titanic. We sort of did an episode around Twister a couple of weeks ago. We've done the Blair Witch Project. This week, it's Dirty Dancing. And you probably know the movie, it's a cult classic. But what really fascinates me is how it was made. Because you probably don't know this, but it was originally an ultra low budget indie film that just happened to blow up via word of mouth. So it was made for just $4.5 million, which in Hollywood that's tiny. And then it premiered at Cannes in 1987, and then it went on to gross over $214 million worldwide. So pretty impressive. But what's even more remarkable is the struggle that took it to the big screen. My guest today is Linda Gottlieb, and she's the producer who oversaw the writing of the script and then stood by the project on the long road to getting it shot, edited, and distributed. And this includes raising money after its original budget fell through and trying to keep the two lead actors, Patrick Swayze and Jennifer Grey, just on speaking terms because they really didn't get along. And then after getting it distributed after its test screenings totally bombed. One of the first executives to ever see Dirty Dancing told Linda, burn the negatives, collect the insurance money. That's how unpopular it was when it was first seen. And I think I'm really drawn to people like Linda, people with unshakable self-belief, just because I often second-guess myself. I just deeply admire people who can tune out the noise and keep going. So today, you're going to hear us talking about perseverance, creativity under pressure, and how the belief in an idea against all the odds, against all the naysayers, can sometimes lead to really great art. Okay, let's get into it. Here is Linda Gottlieb. Linda, welcome to the show.
Hi, Julian.
How you doing this evening?
Nice to be here.
It's nice to have you. Really, it's so nice to have you. Okay, so let's just go back in time a little bit. I want to hear about the first moment that Dirty Dancing came into your life. How did you know the screenwriter?
My job at MGM was to be what Jeffrey Katzenberg used to call a golden retriever. I had to try and get the books before anybody else, come up with the best writers. It was a competitive world. And so I knew writers. I went after writers that I liked. I took them out to lunch to hear their ideas, developed ideas with them. And one of them was a young girl named Eleanor Bergstein. She called me up cold and she said, "Remember, we went on double dates years back." And it was true. She and I were dating roommates in some point in our lives, and we knew each other casually. And she said, "I'd like to come talk to you. I have something that I'm interested in." So I set up a date with her at a little place called Between the Breads, which was not fancy. I thought, this woman, she doesn't merit the Russian tea room, I mean, I didn't expect a lot. I didn't think there would be much happening. So sat down to lunch, and she said, I want to do a script about two sisters, which already interested me. I'm one of two sisters. So is she.
Okay.
Two sisters, and it'll be set in the Catskills, and it'll involve Latin dancing. And part of my job was to kind of be aware of the zeitgeist in the country, and Tango Argentina had just opened on the New York stage and was a hit. I thought, interesting, Latin dancing. Maybe there's something here. And I said, what's the story? She said, well, I don't really have the story. I don't really have a story. She said, I just have that world that I like of the Catskills in the summer. So I thought, this is a boring lunch. This is going to lead to nothing.
I know that feeling. That feeling when you're looking for a story and there's nothing there.
You're looking for a story, nothing. There was nothing there. Yeah. And so I switched topics. I said, tell me about your own life. And she said, well, my father was a doctor. And she said, I was always, I'm interested in dancing because I was always a natural dancer. And she said, I even used to go dirty dancing with boys from the wrong side of the track. And I literally dropped my spoon and fork. And I said, that's $1 million title. She said, what is? I said, Dirty Dancing. She said, that has nothing to do with the story. I said, Eleanor, that's the title. And now we'll figure out the story.
Your instincts. Instincts.
It was promotion. I understood that it was a fabulous title. It was so intriguing. It was so sexy, provocative. And so I said, what's the conflict in the story? And, well, I don't know. She really didn't have a story. So as we sat at lunch, I said, tell me about the contrast in music, because Eleanor really knew the music of the period and I didn't. And she said, well, there are two types of music. There's clean teen music, like, go into the chapel and we're gonna get married, all those songs. And then she said, there's the dirty dancing songs. And I thought, oh, that's really interesting. That's the contrast musically. And then who epitomizes that contrast? And so at lunch, we invented Patrick Swayze's character. And that's how it started.
This blows my mind. You always think that these movies involve so much careful study of the marketing landscape and how can we tell a story that will resonate with an audience. And you're describing this world where it's so fluid. You just come up with a plot over lunch based on this woman's biography. And, as we know, it goes on and makes a lot of money.
What interested me was that it was going to be based on hit songs.
Right.
Musically, she said, all of those songs that we have in this were hits. They were hits because they were great songs. So you didn't have to go and create 15 different songs. I mean, you had all of these great 60s, songs that were there, that were current. And they were, in a sense, audience tested, and they resonate if you could get the period right. So she did a script. We sent, with me. I did a tremendous amount of development on the script with her. I mean, whole plot idea of how Johnny, they spend the night, and she has to confess to her father that she spent the night with him in order to not get him fired. That whole idea was my idea, that I had seen a similar dynamic in another movie. Does she confess that she was sleeping with somebody for the greater good of clearing somebody's name or not? And I thought that. So we worked all that into the plot and sent it to then Frank Yablans, who loved it. And it was all, we're going to make this movie. This is so great. And then, of course, Frank got fired. Mm-hmm. So basically, MGM said, goodbye, don't need you anymore, don't want this project anymore. So the little project that I had called Dirty Dancing went in what's called turnaround. The rights turned around to me as the producer. And I had 1 year. I had 1 year to set them up. Otherwise, the rights would revert to MGM. I had 1 year to get that movie made.
Okay. So I think really for our interests, this is where the story starts because, like I said, I wanted to talk to you about perseverance. So up until this point, you've had a pretty good run. You know, Frankie was into it. It sounds like the screenwriting process went relatively smoothly. But after this, things really got hard.
I sent this, by now I knew everybody in California. So I called Jeffrey Katzenberg, who was running Paramount at the time, and I gave him like a first crack at this. Not for me, said he. Called me back on Monday, not for me. And that process continued. I sent this out to some, like, over 40 people to look at the script, major studios, minor studios. And then I began to think, as they were all turning it down, well, maybe I have to begin to find a star director. And I looked for directors. They turned it down. People really didn't see in it what I saw in it. And what I saw in it was a very sexy movie, and more importantly, a coming-of-age story for a girl. And I felt strongly that girls and women were excluded from the Hollywood calculations. I mean, the studios were run by men. And the comments that I got there were so funny, Julian. They said, it's too soft. It's too small. These are men, right? Soft, right. Small, hello. I said, they want the big, hard movies. And
right. Wow, that's interesting.
It was really true. It was really true. They just didn't think that women and girls would make any kind of a market. But
that's wild. I mean, I guess what the movies of that period, the big sort of 80s movies were like Top Gun or Predator or these sort of movies about muscly men.
Yeah, and those were studio guys who that was their fantasy, I think.
It's also bloody subconscious, isn't it? It's also Freudian.
Yes, absolutely Freudian. So but really, it was turned down constantly. And then we began looking for directors. Directors didn't, some of them would like the script, but they would say things like, I don't really know how to do the dance part. I could get somebody else in to help me do the dance. And to me, the dance was the center of the movie. If the director didn't understand the importance of dance and how it related, the movie couldn't work. I think it was Balanchine who said, "Dance is about the way a man loves a woman. The way he holds a woman. The way all of that is suggested in dance." And so I saw it as a very potentially erotic a film that could really entice an audience, and that would be And then I saw a documentary called He Makes Me Feel Like Dancing. And it was directed by a director named Emile Ardolino, had never done a feature film. But I thought, oh my God, this guy gets dance. He gets dance. He knew where his camera should be. And so I called him cold. And he was on jury duty. I sent him the script. He was so excited. He came up bursting with, I've got to do this movie. Everyone else was lukewarm. He just said, I get it, And the choice of a director is so crucial.
Yeah.
And I always say who the director is as a person translates into what kind of a film he or she makes. And Emile had tremendous warmth. So he got the Catskills humor, but he didn't make fun of people. The film has a warm heart.
It does. Yeah, that's right.
It has a warm heart, and that was his heart as a director in terms of what he did and how he encouraged people and the whole attitude on the set. So I wanted him as a director.
Yeah.
But I still didn't have anybody with money. And what were we going to do? And
I mean, a question on that is so you'd got rejected by anyone with money, basically. Yeah. So when that happens to me personally, I start to doubt myself. I doubt my vision. I'm like, well, maybe everyone can see something that I can't. This is a bad idea. Why am I doing this? And yet you didn't do that. It seems like you remained resolute despite all the feedback that you were getting. So why is that?
Well, I really got to love the script and love the music, love the character. I could see it in my head. And I believed there was a market. I didn't think there was a foreign market. One of the big surprises of the film was how well it did foreign. But I certainly thought it had a big American market because I thought girls and women were being overlooked. To me, it was there for the give them something for them. So I believed in that. And then really when I was getting discouraged, I had a big notebook. I mean, we didn't have computers. I had a big notebook that said, here are the ways the movie can get made. I could get a star director, so I had a part for directors, cast, a star actor, a studio, and I would go through those every day and sort of see what action I could get, what additional, feedback I could get. And I just kept going. And one day the phone rang and somebody said, this is Vestron Pictures calling. And we're interested in talking to you. I thought it was a prank. I said, who is this?
Who
I
set
thought it was
you
a
up?
prank call. Yeah, I thought it was one of my friends just jerking me around. And it turned out it was Mitchell Canold, who was running a film division at Vestron Pictures. Vestron Pictures was the last place you'd send a script because it was the bottom of the heap. They were making kind of everything in there had to be made for $3 million, and they had a formula that showed it couldn't lose money if you made it for $3 million. But Mitch, of course, but of course, Mitchell himself had been a waiter in the Catskills, and so when he read it, he saw the movie that I saw. He saw the dance. He could feel the atmosphere. He thought it was one. He was so excited about it, and so he sold it to his bosses. And the next thing we knew, they said, come in for a meeting, the do or die meeting. The do or die meeting when the studio says, will they or won't they make the movie? And they said to Mitchell, well, tell us your vision about it. And Mitchell literally froze. He lost his voice. It was like your worst nightmare. He just stood there and went,
Why? Mitchell?
He was panicked. He was just... He wanted it so much he froze up. So I started babbling. Eleanor pitched in. We said, what he means is, and we just kept talking.
Oh God, that's a tense moment.
Yeah, those are tense moments. But
it's really a coming together of people who believe in it, isn't it? It's you believe in it. Yeah.
They said to me, "Why do you believe in it?" At that meeting, why do you believe in it? And I said, remember the movie The Way We Were? That was a story of Redford and Barbra Streisand. And I said that movie was a huge success, and women watched every time that movie went on television. My secretary would stay home and watch it with a little glass of wine and feeling sad but thrilled. And I said, that dynamic is what I see. And I think that we need a great-looking guy and a less than perfectly gorgeous girl. And I really did have that in mind because of The Way We Were. I said, that's the way the audience will enter that film. So it's not a movie star, but it's somebody, a wonderful actress who can be the entry point for girls who are insecure in the movie. And they looked at me
amazing.
like, that's a strange idea. But they actually let us cast the movie we wanted. I don't think MGM would have. I mean, no. Jennifer was not a star. Patrick, of course, was. Patrick and Jennifer had worked together on Red Dawn, which I didn't know. And they didn't get along. They did not like each other. And they were not happy when they were together. But of course, everybody says, oh, the chemistry was so great.
Yeah. Well, let's explore that. So Vestron came on board. However, I understand that they gave you a bit of a tricky deal. They said, hey, we'll bankroll this, but if you go a cent over I think it was $5 million, then
Right.
we'll shut it down.
Right.
Can you just tell me about that deal?
Well, it was called a negative pickup deal. They had to do it with my company. So theoretically, my company was making the film, but they were backing me. And it had to be $5 million, including a contingency, a 10% contingency. So really, we had to make it for 4.5. And, that was my job as the producer. Once we got going, I was on the budget all the time, just checking everything. I knew where we were every single day, and they understood that we knew what we were doing. The only way to make that film for $4.5 million, we couldn't shoot it in the Catskills. For one thing, the Catskills looked different; they were modernized already, and they were the only way to make the film. I understood was to make it in a right-to-work state, in a place that wasn't a union state, so we could get cheaper extras. We could get cheaper rooms to stay, and the budget wouldn't work in the Northeast. So we found a hotel in Lake Lure, in Virginia, a big the hotel that became the Kellerman's, and we had I had to take over the hotel. Our cast and crew would be there, and I had to go and sell the idea of this to the owners of the hotel. And I thought, oh my God, if they read this script, it's about abortion, it's about Jews, the Catskills, this is conservative country. So I had a different title page on it, and I called it Dancin', DANCIN apostrophe. And I said, here's the script. It's sort of like an MGM musical. Oh, wow, they said. And we had a deal, and that was our...
That's so good. Also, Dancin' apostrophe sounds like such a low, just like a sort of boring film.
Yes. But you certainly was not going to show them dirty dancing,
Yeah.
Really. And of course, the irony is that with the huge success of the film, they have been living off of it ever since. They have dirty dancing weekends and contests, and it's become, famous.
It's become their bread and butter.
Yeah.
But left to their own devices, they would have toned it down. It took your sort of light manipulation for them to get across the line. Hey, we're just going to stop here for a quick ad break, but stick around. We'll be right back with more What It Was Like.
Hey, you know what would make your customer service help desk way better? Dumping it and then switching to Intercom. But you're not quite ready to make that change. We get it. That's why Finn, the world's leading AI customer service agent, is now available on every help desk. Finn can instantly resolve up to 80% of your tickets, which makes your customers happier and gets you off the customer service rep hiring treadmill. Finn by Intercom, the leading customer service AI agent, now available on every help desk.
If you're a parent or share a fridge with someone, Instacart is about to make grocery shopping so much easier. Because with family carts, you can share a cart with your partner and each add the items you want. Since between the two of you, odds are you'll both remember everything you need. And this way, you'll never have to eat milkless cereal again. So minimize the stress of the weekly shop with family carts. Download the Instacart app and get delivery in as fast as 30 minutes. Plus, enjoy $0 delivery fees on your first 3 orders. Service fees apply for 3 orders in 14 days. Excludes restaurants.
Buying a new mattress sounds great. Paying for it? Debatable. Hear us out. At Mattress Warehouse, we offer 0% interest financing over 2, 3, 4, or 5 years. And we guarantee you'll pay the lowest price available, and we'll keep that promise for a full year after purchase. Go ahead and buy that mattress of your dreams. Mattress Warehouse has you covered. So where would you look to find the perfect mattress? In a little mattress store or Mattress Warehouse? Visit mattresswarehouse.com.
So let's get to the casting process, because everyone wants to hear about Patrick Swayze. How did you get him on the film? What was he doing?
Well, I knew I had actually wanted to do some years ago a film about Balanchine and Suzanne Farrell, and I was at the time beginning to look for actors who could dance, and I came across Patrick, and I knew that about him. It was just like one of those random things that I knew, and so he was high on our list, and we actually only we auditioned him and Billy Zane, who was another actor. Those are the only two men we looked at seriously. And of course, he's tremendous actor, but he didn't know that dancing. He did not know how to do that dancing. He was trained as a classical ballet dancer. His mother had taught him that. And one of the things that once we got underway, he had to unlearn the way he held his body. He had to learn how to get down and dirty and do dirty dancing, because it was not what he was trained to do.
He was not a dirty man. He was a refined ballerina.
That's right. And then for the girl, I mean, we just saw millions of people, but Jennifer, she was so adorable. I knew her father. I knew the family. My kids had gone to school with her brother, etc. And so when we came in with the audition, there was her father, and he sort of pushed her into the room, and she stood there in the room sort of frozen. And we had asked, the first thing that would happen was that we'd ask actresses to dance for us to see what was going on. And she stood there and she said, I know I'm not supposed to say this, but before I dance, I just have to tell you that this girl is exactly like me. I know everything about her. I feel everything about her. And I understand completely what she's like. And I shouldn't have said that. And she smiled. And we were in love. That was Baby. I mean, She was exactly that character. And
yeah. I mean, she kind of almost embarrassed herself, but that's something
right.
that Baby would do.
Exactly. And she hadn't prepared it, and it was genuine. And that is the way she was. I mean, she was adorable and wonderful to work with and sweet as can be. And then, of course, when she learned that Patrick was cast, she was not happy. He was not happy.
Why were they not happy? Can you give me a bit of context? I think they hadn't
gotten along. Well, they're such different people. I mean, Patrick is a real perfectionist. He's a trained dancer. So if you did 5 takes with Patrick, he would do the same thing. He had technique. Jennifer had none. She was just all over the place. And she had instincts. And so she would give you 5 different takes or 10 different takes. So they had very different techniques in terms of acting. And also, he's a macho guy. And so when she would be afraid of like going over the log or doing the thing, he would make fun of her, and she used doubles, for the scene across the log. Patrick was saying, "Oh, ridiculous," and I think they just didn't like each other. And when it came down to some of the scenes, kissing at the end, she ran off the set and she said, "Oh, I hate the way he kisses. This is bad."
Did she give you
Patrick Swayze? I feel like, the English say, close your eyes and think of Queen Elizabeth, go back. And you're doing take 2, you must put up with this.
Did she give you any specifics about where he was going wrong with the kissing?
No, nor did I ask.
Too much tongue.
I don't know. I didn't want. I just wanted. I kept saying the clock is running, and you can do it. You're an actress. You can do this. But in fact, she was, Patrick was the superstar of the movie, the sexy guy that everybody, talks about. But if you look at that movie, it's really Jennifer who is the heart of it. I mean, she's like all of us. She has weaknesses, frailties. She's insecure, and when she gets the guy, it's like when when Streisand got Redford, right? Gave hope to all people who were less than classically beautiful. And when Jennifer Grey, and Baby had this guy because of her character, because of who she was, because she was so appealing, and I think that her casting was, to me, really the crucial thing in that film. Obviously Patrick was a superstar. He was fantastic. but it was in his wheelhouse, and
you have such a understanding of the psychology at play here. Like if a film is a sort of mechanism to deliver feelings to an audience,
that's a great way to phrase it. That's a great way to phrase what a film is, a mechanism to deliver feelings, because that's what you want when you go to a movie. You really want to feel something, right?
Yeah. Well, that's right. I mean, if a film can promise to make you happy or sad or whatever it is, then it'll probably do well. But I think what's interesting is you have such a really intricate knowledge of all of the little pieces that were going to deliver the right feelings to the audience, and specifically to young women. And I'm wondering, like, were you sort of conscious of this at the time? Like, it needs to be exactly like this, and Jennifer Grey is the heart, she is the, and Patrick is this, or did it just sort of, it's in retrospect now that you've thought about it?
We had also, we had a wonderful casting agent, Bonnie Timmerman, who was very good and championed this too with me. I mean, she was very much in favor of those two as the cast. But no, I mean, I would have been grateful if we hadn't had terrible reviews. I mean, none of us thought this was a big movie. Not anybody, myself included. I mean, I wanted to get it made, and I wanted it to be wonderful.
Yeah.
But if you had ever asked me, could I imagine, 37 years later, being interviewed about the success of a film that is still playing, I would have thought you were taking acid or something. I mean, I just could not have imagined. I tried to get an editor aboard by promising him a piece of the net profits. He said, pass. Nobody thought it was going to be what it was, least of all me.
It's fantastic, I think, that Hollywood people who pride themselves on knowing what's up, what's cool, can have such massive blind spots, and someone like you can be literally the only one who sees the potential.
Well, that happens, and that's happened with people who do little films, like Blum Studios, who do inexpensive Blumhouse.
Yeah.
That's somebody who has a vision of a market that they want to hit, and they do it really well. So, I don't know. And then it's, it's luck. It's luck.
Yeah. There's a lot of luck.
Yeah. And the film, when it opened modestly. It wasn't a huge opening weekend. It sort of just tootled along. And then the soundtrack. I mean, that's worth talking about. I had hired somebody else to do the music, a well-known guy, very well-known music producer, and he just didn't deliver. I think he thought that this was a modest film. We kept saying, we need the big number at the end. We need that song at the end. And everything that he sent, we didn't like at all. And in the end, I went back to Vestron and I said, we've got to fire him. I'm sorry. We have to let him go. We made the wrong choice. And we need to bring in somebody else. Because he had said finally to me, Linda, just do it to a click track. I said, we can't do dancing to a click track. It has no emotion. You can't do that. No. So we got rid of this guy. And then along came this really terrific guy named Jimmy Einer, who was sort of, he was full of swagger and knowledge and wonderful. He knew everybody. And he just called all his contacts. And one day we were in the studio and he sent me this tape, and it was a time of my life. And I brought it down. The kids everybody was, in the hotel after dinner, and I played it and everybody started dancing to it, and everyone loved it. It was just like an instant hit. And then, of course, he re-recorded it with Jennifer Warren and, what's his name, Bill Medley. With a very specific, the director would say, I want whatever 30 seconds at the beginning for her to get up on the stage. He planned out the way the song, the architecture of the song. Yeah. But the music was such a huge part of the film's success. And we didn't expect that or understand that, but that's what happened. The music began to get people to go to the theater. And then the theater, made them buy the soundtrack. So it had this wonderful, in the end, the idea that we were using hit songs of the past. And there were reasons that they were hits. They were great songs, great songs.
Yeah.
And so the only songs the original ones we did were Time of My Life. And then Patrick came to me one day and he said, I write songs. I said, I didn't know you did that. He said, yeah, take a listen. And he played me She's Like the Wind. And I went crazy. I loved this song. I loved him singing the song. So I said, let's put that in the movie too. Wow. And long time afterwards, somebody said the reason that track was so great was every song was there for a very particular purpose. It commented on the scene or it made the scene. Whereas other films, like Top Gun had a track, they would just put music behind scenes and they were not there. They didn't have the emotional impact,
Yeah.
The way we used the music, the editing of the music into the film was hugely responsible for the success. It wasn't just a song that was there. It was a song that made you, as you said, made you feel something.
Yeah.
And so, the music fed the success of the film.
Yeah, I mean, it's still, you can play most of those songs now on any dance floor and you'll get a response. People go, oh yeah, I love this song. Yeah, it's amazing. Can we just return to some of the difficulties you faced on the shoot?
What did happen was that the heat was really, really tough. It was very, very hot initially. And some of the scenes, we had a scene in which Patrick had an accident where I was quite nervous. That was the scene of where they're dancing across the log and he's saying, come on, baby, and he tells her how to keep her balance.
Yeah.
And he refused to use a double. He was a very macho guy. I don't do doubles. So there he was on the log, and he fell. And I thought, oh my God! And his knees swelled up, and he is, he's used to pain. Dancers are used to pain. He was saying, it's nothing. So I took him to the hospital, and they had a needle yay big, which he said, you just put it in the knee and you draw the fluid. He knew he'd been hurt before, but that was a scary moment. And back he went to the set and did it again. And Jennifer,
that's professional. That's amazing.
Yeah. He really was. He was absolutely amazing. It took 3 people to get him up in the morning. He was always. It was hard to get him onto the set. He would grumble, he would moan. But once he was there, he was the absolutely perfect professional.
And I understand that Jennifer had some of her own eccentricities. So I've read reports that Jennifer, she was a little greener on the set.
Oh, she was. She was very. For one thing,
sorry, go on.
She was dating Matthew Broderick at the time. And so Matthew came down to the set once, and that was not a happy time. Here she is doing these romantic scenes with Swayze and whom she doesn't like, and Patrick. Those moments were hard. And Patrick, on the other hand, had his moments. I think I probably should not go into that. Never mind.
oh God!
Wow,
you left me on the edge of my seat.
He wanted his wife down there. He wanted his wife to play the part of his partner, his dance partner.
Okay.
And we auditioned her, and we didn't think she was as good as other people, so we didn't. So Jennifer was green, but that was what was so great about her. For instance, in that scene, if you remember where he's teaching her how to dance, and she has her arm up, and he runs his hand down her arm, and she starts to giggle. And he gets so pissed off. That was real. That was not scripted. She started to giggle, and he was furious at her, and he kept doing it again and again. Of course, the director was so great because he kept the camera rolling, and that moment was wonderful, absolutely wonderful. And they improvised things like that whole scene where they're on the floor learning to dance together, and they're mouthing, hey, baby, and goofing around. All of that, they made up. That was not in the script. And our director, Emil, saw this, and he said, it's great, it's great, it's great. Worked it out and put it into the movie. And other things that happened, we had such a small budget. I remember when we were doing this whole sequence about her learning how to dance, and how are we going to show the process and time passing. And so the idea was that we would give her different wardrobe, and she would go down those steps in different clothes. When I got there, and the costume person said, oh, I forgot to I didn't have many clothes for her. I said, oh my God, what are we going to do?
Costume person, you've got one job.
yeah, got one job. Please get us some different thing. So Emil, our director, who had been an editor himself, who understood, really had this brilliant idea of playing it double time, and running it against the Surfaris song. And so that whole sequence down was totally invented in the edit room.
Wow. It's really just often about letting good people do their thing.
You bet. Absolutely. Jack.
And the scene, the very famous scene where Swayze lifts Jennifer up in the air. So my understanding is that the only time that they really nailed that out of the water was in the very last scene, which we see in the movie. That was sort of like a first take, and they got it right. I was just wondering if you can walk me through the process of getting this iconic moment.
Yeah. First of all, when they were doing it in the water, in the lake, at Lake Lure, it was very cold. By now we were September, and it was the leaves were already turning. So we had first of all, we had the set dressing people come in painting the leaves. They literally sprayed the leaves green so that it would look like it was still summer. God. And then when they did that scene in the water, she was freezing, and it was really hard for her to do that scene. And she kept, she kept falling, etc. But when we came to doing it on set, he did it over and over again. And Patrick he said, I have one more. The hard part was not so much the lift. It was as much as when he had to jump down and land from the stage down to where they were all dancing. And because I think he was hurting. And that was a moment that was hard to get. And the lift, I'm trying to remember. I think the lift, they finally got a good one, and we all were greatly cheered. And that was crucial, because the process, we had set it up where she had to first learn in the meadow. She was trying to do it, and she couldn't do it. And then she tried in the water, and she could sort of do it. And it was the culmination. And of course, it's become such a famous moment in film that it's been used in commercials. It's been used in for my birthday. For my birthday, my two sons did a version of the song in which one lifted the other one over their heads. As a tribute.
That's nice.
Time of my life.
Yeah. When you saw that moment and they finally nailed it, and the crew burst into applause, did you look at that and go, that's the cover of the movie. That is an iconic moment?
Honestly, I probably didn't see that. I don't think I did. I'd like to say I saw the brilliance of it, but I mean, they were, the whole movie was the playoff of that movie. It was not just that moment. It was everybody else. It was Marge and her husband, Jennifer's parents in the movie who were sitting watching it. It was all the other people. It was Kellerman's. It was all of that happiness that Emil was smart enough to give us. It wasn't just them. It was that afterglow. The movie has a big climax like that. But you don't just stay with them. You see that they've spread joy and that they've changed things. They really changed the environment by their bravery. So it's a very uplifting, those two old matrons who are there with their furs, they start dancing. And so it gives the audience a chance they're laughing and crying, I think, with everybody in that audience.
Yeah, absolutely. When you think back to your time on set, shooting this film, I think it took, about 6 weeks to shoot the film?
I think it was 47 days. So what is that? 8 weeks?
Yeah.
Something like that. I forgot.
But what was your general sort of level of optimism during that period? Were you looking at the dailies and you were thinking, hey, this is good, this is coming together? Or what was your mood?
Honestly, I looked at the first set of dailies with Jennifer, and all I could see was, how could I have cast a girl with a big nose like that? How did I do that? How did I, the audience is going to be, I was just so aware of her nose, and I was nuts about it. I kept thinking, I was so foolish. I was so wrong. I kept thinking, I have to shoot around that or get her in a different angle. But she was, by the end of the movie, she's beautiful. The audience thinks she's beautiful. And you do. You come to love her looks.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But you first see her, you think, this is unusual looking leading lady. But did I know what we had? No, I really didn't, nor did anyone else. I mean, it wasn't, there's this famous story about this when Vestron, Mitchell Cannell, the exec producer that produced, the person who said yes to the money and backed us, they showed the movie to Aaron, what's his name, big Hollywood producer, this person who did Beverly Hills 90210. Okay. And they said, well, what do you think? And he stood and he looked at the Vestron people and he said, burn the negative and collect the insurance.
Jeez,
he thought it was a disaster.
That's scathing. Hey, we're just going to stop here for a quick ad break, but stick around. We'll be right back with more What It Was Like.
Did you know that selling your home is one of the top 5 most stressful things you do in your lifetime? Hi, I'm Sarah Reynolds, CEO of Reynolds Empower Home Team with Keller Williams. Debbie and I are here to help remove the stress of selling your home by guaranteeing in writing that if your home doesn't sell, we will buy it. That's our guarantee. Many agents promise to sell your home, but can they guarantee it in writing? We can. Call us to sell your home today, guaranteed. 703-637-SOLD or go to DebbieHasTheBuyers.com.
I'm curious about how you felt when you saw the first cut. What did you think?
Well, first of all, I saw the director's cut, which is, the first cut, and it was long. And I thought, geez, it's really good. It's really good. But I was sitting there taking notes, get rid of this, cut that, change that. I mean, I saw things that I wanted to change in his cut, and we worked very closely. Emil and Eleanor Bergstein and myself were in the edit room every day, mostly being quiet because Emil was good and he knew what he wanted. But we just kept fine-tuning it. And when I thought when I first realized what the movie was, what a success it was, I was in California driving in a rented car down Rodeo Drive, and on the soundtrack on the radio came Time of My Life. And this was the first time, and I started screaming, and I had to pull the car over and stop. I started crying because I thought, oh my God, it's getting radio play, and it's, I began to realize that it was this tsunami building. But I remember that moment so clearly.
What was that feeling like? I mean, and that sounds a bit like relief to me.
Oh, it was relief and pride and, a thrill that it could, that it resonated, that it was a hit. And moved people. And, the movie was a movie that the studio had thought would appeal to dates, a dating movie. But what happened was the movie, people came to it, young girls came to it because of Jennifer. Dating couples came to it because of the couple. And parents came to it because the father-daughter relationship, the parent-child relationship in it moved them. It was, I think that was one of the really good things that Eleanor did in that script, was develop the Jerry Orbach character in that scene between father and daughter, which was such a crucial scene of this daughter demanding that her father be true to his principles. So people came to it from different places, and dance unites them all. I mean, the dance was so good, and to his credit, the way Emile shot it was sensational. He understood dance. He understood where the camera had to be in a way that most directors don't. I mean, they're scared of it. They're not sure what to do. But I still watch those dance sequences, and I'm amazed at how really well shot they are and well edited.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an incredibly tight film for the budget that $4.5 million, and there's so many beautiful, really high production value moments. It feels to me like, as much as anything, what you experienced was just an incredible amount of luck of everyone just really doing a great job, and it somehow magically came together.
Yeah, I think that's right. Some key decisions on casting, decisions, first of all, script, getting title, crucial. I mean, if it had been called, Weekend in the Catskills, who knows? I mean, I think the title was a tremendous hook. And then, we haven't talked about the fact that it was about abortion. That was really controversial. And it was it was about something. This girl had principles. So she was quite a heroine. But I think the fact that it took on a subject like that also gave it gravitas in a way, and a way for reviewers. It wasn't a silly film. It was a film about something.
Absolutely. Did the decision to cover abortion come from you, or did it come from the screenwriter? Well, who was pushing this? That
was Eleanor's idea to do this, and because it was also the plot angle that made it possible, because he had to get a replacement for her. So from a mechanical script point of view, we needed to get his partner immobilized and out of the way. And so the abortion thing, it worked, and it turned the plot toward, we have to get Daddy in. Daddy then knew her, that she had lied to him. So it became the turning point, the linchpin that destroyed her relationship with her father and led to that really crucial scene where she confronts her father, and he treats her as a grown-up.
Yes. Yeah, I love, one of the reasons I love it so much is that it's just got such momentum. Every scene just bleeds seamlessly into the next scene. And it just really, it feels like it's just rushing you along. It's great. We did. I mean, I like to do that. I like things that move. I mean, look, the movie really hits its stride and begins when she carries the watermelon in and she meets Johnny. So in a sense, all the editing in the beginning, the things that I was pushing was get there faster, get there faster. So that all the things we thought we had to set up, we would often trim those so that we can get earlier to the moment where the two of them meet. Okay, well, in the spirit of moving it faster, did you? So we've jumped around the chronology a little bit here, but let's sort of get to the point where you launched the film, and I know you just were talking about how you heard it on the radio for the first time, but what was the reception like at the box office over the initial weekend and just sort of over that first week?
The initial weekend was okay, nothing phenomenal. I sort of kept watching. It was and not in a lot of screens. I remember thinking, and see, it opened in August. I remember thinking, I hope it'll be around until Thanksgiving. And of course it was, and it kept building. And people would see it multiple times. You know, they would bring their daughter or they would bring their mother and see it again. But still nobody, I mean, I can't think of another movie like this. I mean, this was made in 1986. It was released in 1987. It's almost 40 years old.
Yeah.
And it's being seen again and again by many generations of people.
So let's talk about Perseverance, because this is a story about, you know, in its own way, it's a classic Hollywood story about a person who really believes, and that's you. And you believed that this could be a great film that would really resonate with a lot of women, a lot of young people, old people, and, you know, across the generations, it's a universal thing. And you were right. But it sounds like a real fight to get it.
It was. And you know, I was thinking part of being a producer, I think, is making the tough decisions. Like when we brought Emil Ardolino in as the director, I'm sorry, before that, we had brought in somebody else to direct the film. And he had decided that he wanted a complete rewrite of the film. And that's one of the things that directors can do. So I was not happy. I was not involved. But he took Eleanor off, and the two of them rewrote the film to make it, quote, more realistic, where, you know, it doesn't end so happily. And I get a look at the script that's there that he has done. And I say, this is a disaster. We're wrong. This is the wrong director, and we have to fire him. So I made the decision and then got Vestron to agree that we were going to fire the first director, and then we brought in Emil. I was going to fire the person who we had hired to do the music. So I was not necessarily Miss Popularity. I mean, I had to stand up for what I believed, and I really believed it so strongly. And I wasn't afraid to do that somehow. I don't know why. I did have this vision of the way the film could be. And when he took out what I thought were the commercial ending of this film in the name of making it realistic, I said, oh, I'm sorry. Forget it. Audience does not want this. I don't want this. This is not the film we had in mind. And goodbye.
Yeah. Okay, so what I'm hearing there is that you really listened to your instincts every step of the way.
Yeah.
So tell me what you know about listening to your instincts.
Well, I trust my instincts in certain things. I trust my instincts about writers and script. And therefore, the script that we went with was the script that I wanted done. I didn't want anybody taking it in different directions. That was the vision. And Eleanor had agreed to that vision. So the two of us agreed that that was the direction that the script should be. I think the reason that I've had success in doing films is that I do have strong instincts. And when you work with good people who are talented, they usually respect that. I mean, it makes it interesting for them. If you can show them what you see and make them share that vision, then you can, you know, it wasn't a compromise. I sort of didn't really believe in it, that we should compromise about the way the ending should be. It had to be that way. Had to be happy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do trust my instincts. I mean, that's sort of all you can go on.
Have you always trusted, because there's a confidence there, to know that you're right and to believe that you're right is a confidence thing. Have you always felt that way about your instincts, or is it learned?
I think I always felt that way, frankly, if I'm true. I think that I mean, people have told me that that's rather unusual. That is, it's less important for me to be liked, you know, than it is to do. I mean, I'm not afraid to take the heat if I believe in something. I'm not afraid of that. What's the worst that can happen? You know, I can fail. So, you know,
you can become unpopular.
I can become unpopular. You know what? If your film is great, you become popular.
Yes. So I think one of the reasons that people will be interested in this interview is that everyone in life, they encounter pushback. They encounter things don't go to plan. You know, they've got some vision of some project or something that they want to do and it's not working out. And I think everyone can do with a little pep talk, a bit of inspiration about how to just fight for what you think is good. And I'm wondering, what did you learn about perseverance from this project that maybe could be applicable to anyone listening to this?
I think you have to be honest with yourself about the reasons that you're doing something. You have to be able to, if it gets backing, if you're looking for backing, you have to be able to sell it. You have to be able to believe that yourself. You have to really believe in it yourself and know that you've done the hard work to make it as good as it can be. And then you have to think that you're as good as the person you're talking to who tells you it's not good, that your opinion is just as valid as his, I say his because it's usually a man, and that when somebody tells you that just because they're in a position of authority doesn't necessarily mean that you're wrong and they're right. It just means that you differ in what you see, and you're as likely to be right as they are. I guess that's what I would feel. I never took on a project that I didn't really believe in. Not that they would all be smash hits, but that I knew why I was doing it. I could tell you the reasons why I thought it was a really good idea. And that means the practicality of it. In other words, if I want to do a movie, I better know who I think is the market, what kind of casting I have to be able to sell it to myself. I have to believe in it. Believe in the script. So when somebody tells me to change the ending, I'm saying, no, that's not right. And and frankly, I thought to myself, I'm as likely to be right as Jeffrey Katzenberg is. You know, and interestingly, Katzenberg was the first person who saw the movie and wrote me an immediate letter saying, you were right, I was wrong, congratulations. That's why people
nice.
like work. That's why people like working with Jeffrey. Yeah, he's a real mensch.
Yeah. Did Dirty Dancing change your life?
Oh yeah, it did. It changed my life financially. I mean, you know, it's made a lot of money, and that's always nice.
Always nice. Did you retain? Yeah. Can I ask? Did you retain some of the IP?
Oh yeah, I'm the largest single profit participant in the movie.
Oh yeah, that would have been quite a windfall.
So yeah, it changed my life financially. It changed my life in terms of, you know, I feel that if anything, this is what I'll be remembered for, and I feel very proud of that.
Absolutely. Did you? I mean, maybe this is a personal question. You know, when you're an artist, when you're creatively minded, I think a lot of people feel as though one day I'm going to make something that kind of fills the void a little bit, that really gives me a sense of like, I've done it. I'm proud of this thing. I can put my name on that forever. Like, this is my contribution to the universe. Did it kind of fill this sort of yearning to do something great? Did you feel creatively satisfied after this?
That's a great question. I think that realization that you're describing happened to me much later as I got older. Began to look back on my life and think, what have I done? You know, I've written books, I've taught at schools, I've done, you know, all kinds of things and gotten various awards. But what's been the thing that really thrills me or makes me most proud? And it was Dirty Dancing. So I didn't feel that right at the time. I didn't have the perspective. In fact, when I first looked at the movie, this is interesting, when I first looked at the movie when it came out, all I could see was its mistakes, I thought. I hated Jennifer's dress that she wore, how could I have let her wear that color dress against that background? I was not happy with some of Jerry Orbach's performance. I saw all the things that sort of made me wince. And then I sort of didn't really look at the film again for maybe 10 years, really. And I looked at it again 10 years later. I thought, it's a great film. It's a great film. But I didn't feel that right away. I really didn't. What's interesting is how your judgments about your accomplishments or your artwork or whatever it is that you do can change over time. That surprised me very much.
Yes. Yeah. And do you maybe it changed just due to its success as well?
No, well, I watched it recently. There was a screening in Bedford, big screening with a fabulous screen. And this was just last year. So it was whatever, almost it was 34 years or whatever. And I was I was absolutely thrilled by it. There was nothing I wanted to change. I didn't mind her dress. I didn't mind Jerry's performance. All the things that had bothered me. With time, I look back and I think it's really, I'm very happy and proud to have given people so much joy to make something that's kind of a classic. And how lucky that, dumb luck or whatever, that this film has endured. Well, the film has given me great joy. It's given people all over the world great joy. And how thrilling is that, when I mention what I have done, that people respond with awe and surprise. And, that's a gift that the film gave me.
Yeah. Well, this interview has been a gift for me. So thank you, Linda. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Julie.
Today's episode was produced by Rachel Tuffery. It was mixed by Jimmy Saunders, who also did our theme music. Ali Dickey is our intern. And a big thanks to Nina Fussell on our research team, who tracked down Linda and made today's interview possible. And this whole thing has been a Super Real production.
This is Paige DeSorbo from Giggly Squad. Boost Mobile is no longer that prepaid wireless company you remember. They've invested billions into building their own 5G towers across America. With Boost Mobile's networks, customers enjoy the speed and service they'd expect from the big three. Plus, groundbreaking benefits you'd only get from a true challenger of the industry. Boost Mobile will let you try the network risk-free for 30 days. So visit your nearest Boost Mobile store or find us online at boostmobile.com today.